Now, returning to the refugee crisis and specifically what's being done in Britain to prepare for migrants when they arrive. Well, Catherine Gladwell is the director of the Refugee Support Network and she joins me now. And a very good afternoon to you, Catherine. Well, first of all, tell me about the number of offers. I know they've been flooding in of people who are willing to house refugees.
Yeah, absolutely. This week we've seen an unprecedented number of people get in touch with our charity. We've had people offering rooms, we've had people offering entire houses, we've had people offering their time. We've even had 6-year-old children offering their pocket money.
And have you any idea how specifically it will work? Well, we're waiting to hear from the Prime Minister, of course, later this afternoon. But is that the route that you think it will go? The local authorities will then accept offers from people to house some of the refugees in their own homes?
I think what's clear is that whatever happens, we need a clear system that can make sure that people are housed safely. In a lot of these cases, we're talking about children, and you obviously can't just put a child in a house. There needs to be a proper system to make sure that people are trained and that this happens properly. I mean, what we're saying to people is that if you don't have a room, if there isn't a system up and running where you can offer accommodation, there are other things that you can do. You can still make a difference. Of
course, I mean, lots of things in terms of contributions, but I mean, people would need to be aware, won't they? This was from the head of the local government association saying, well, you know, for people seeking asylum, it can take several years for the process to be gone through. So you have to be prepared for that kind of length of time.
You do, and it is a long process, and we've been supporting refugee children in this country for several years. And one of the things that we see is that what happens in that time when people are waiting is incredibly important. And you can imagine for children, one of the most important things is that we actually take that opportunity to invest in their education. 13 million children have had their education destroyed by the conflict in Syria and in North Africa. And when they arrive here, they start to say, I want to use education to put the pieces of my life back together, and we have an opportunity to enable them to do that.
But of course, as we know, a lot of strain on school places and things like that, beginning of a school year at this very moment. It's a question of resourcing as well, another thing you'll be wanting to hear from the Prime Minister and that local authorities will want to hear about resources going into things like education, housing and medical help.
Absolutely, and I think this is the time when the statutory sector, the government and the voluntary sector really need to be able to work together to provide the resources that people need. So taking the example of education that you mentioned, we work with a large number of volunteer mentors who will support teachers, support social workers to help individual children progress in their education. And that's the type of support that we could see set up across a number of different sectors, whether it's health, whether it's education, to respond to this need.
And what do you think about the numbers involved here? You know, if it's 10,000, even if it's 20,000, there are millions of people just in Syria alone, or now outside Syria, who've been affected. There are many more from other countries, Eritrea, Sudan, just to name a few. Do you think Britain should be doing more?
You're right, this is absolutely a global crisis, and our attention right now is on Syria, but it's easy to forget some of the longer crises like what's happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo, for example. And I think what we need is a three-pronged approach that will look at durable solutions in the long term, so looking at what can be done to build peace in those regions, what can be done to increase resources in the immediate host countries, so places like Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey that are taking the bulk of the refugees, but then also there's immediate needs on our doorstep as well, and we've got a responsibility to meet those needs.
But when they do come into the European Union, it doesn't look as if Britain is doing as much. Well, it's an absolute fact, not just about looks. It's not doing as much as places like Germany or Sweden.
The response in Germany has been absolutely phenomenal over the last couple of weeks, and you're right, we can't have a situation where the burden of this crisis falls entirely on just a couple of European countries. We need a shared response, and we need the UK to get involved in that.
OK, very good to talk to you, Catherine Gladwell. Thank you very much indeed.